Nityananda.
Jai Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhaktavrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhaktavrinda.
We're continuing our reading of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're at Madhya Lila, Chapter 6, the liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. We're taking up at text number 102. In the age of Kali, as well as in Dwapara Yuga, the people offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by various mantras and observe the regulative principles of the supplementary Vedic literatures. Now please hear of this from me. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.531. Krishna Varnam Tushara Krishnam Sango Angashtra Parshadam Jadnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Sumedasa. In this age of Kali, those who are intelligent perform the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead who appears in this age, always describing the glories of Krishna. That incarnation is yellowish in hue and is always associated with his plenary expansions, such as Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and personal expansions such as Gadadhara, as well as his devotees and associates, such as Swarup Damodar. Purport: this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.532 is explained by Srila Jiva Goswami in his Krama Sandarbha, as quoted by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in regard to the explanation of Adi Lila, 3rd chapter, verse 52. Suvarna Varna Hemango Varnangashan Janangadi Sanyasa Krishna Shanto Nishta Shanti Parayana. The Lord, in the incarnation of Gaurasundar, has a golden complexion. Indeed, his entire body, which is very nicely constituted, is like molten gold. Sandalwood pulp is smeared all over his body. He will take the 4th order of spiritual life, sannyas, and will be very much self-controlled. He will be distinguished from Mayavadi sannyasis in that he will be fixed in devotional service and will spread the Sankirtan movement. Gopinathacharya quoted this verse from the Mahabharata's Vishnu Sahasranam Stotra. Gopinathacharya then said, there is no need to quote so much evidence from Shastras, for you are a very dry speculator. There is no need to sow seeds in barren land. When the Lord will be pleased with you, you will also understand these conclusions and will quote from the Shastras. The false arguments and philosophical word jugglery of your disciples are not faults of theirs. They have simply received the benediction of Mayavad philosophy. From Bhagavatam 6.431, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of unlimited qualities, and whose different potencies bring about agreement and disagreement between participants. Thus, the illusory energy again and again covers the self-realization of both disputants. Why do you say why? Why do you like that so much? Use the mic.
I just felt like that explains a lot of what we experience, especially on book distribution, or if we get in an argument philosophically, I mean different persons from different faiths, and there's always arguments and counter-arguments, and that discussion feels like it goes on ad infinitum, and there's no conclusion. So it seems nice.
Yeah.
It really gets to the point.
It also gives you a release from that.
Mm-hmm.
Why go into the wranglings of these philosophical points? Be a Stita Muni, just accept Krishna's version, accept your spiritual master's version, become Vyavasayatma Kabut here, be fixed on one thing and forget all the rest. Unless you need it. Yes, Prabhu?
I mean, the translation, this looks to be, because it speaks whose different potencies bring about agreement and disagreement between disputants. So is it referring to only philosophical speculations, or is it just referring to also any kind of dispute is? It could be between devotees also? Or?
Just look up 6.431 and let's see the commentary and the context. Let me know when you have it.
Sure.
There's another verse like that, very similar, in which Krishna, you got it here. Purport, since time immemorial or since the creation, I'm reading for those of you who don't know what's going on in here. This is 6.431, the verse at hand. We wanted a little more depth of understanding, so I'm reading the purport. Since time immemorial or since the creation of the cosmic manifestation of the conditioned souls have formed various parties of philosophical speculation, but this is not true of the devotees. Non-devotees have different ideas of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, and therefore they are called vadis or prativadis, proponents and counter-proponents. It is understood from the statement of Mahabharata that there are many munis or speculators. Tarko pratishta shrutayo vidinna, na savrashir yasya matam nabinnam. All speculators must disagree with other speculators. Otherwise, why should there be so many opposing parties concerned with ascertaining the supreme cause? Philosophy means finding the ultimate cause. As Vedanta Sutra very reasonably says, atato brahma jignasa, human life is meant for understanding the ultimate cause. Devotees accept that the ultimate cause is Krishna because this conclusion is supported by all Vedic literature and also by Krishna himself, who says, Aham sarvasya prabhava, I'm the source of everything. Devotees have no problem understanding the ultimate cause of everything, but non-devotees must face many opposing elements because everyone who wants to be a prominent philosopher invents his own way. In India, there are many parties of philosophers such as Dvaitavadis, Advaitavadis, Vaisesikas, Mimamsakas, Mayavadis, and Svabhavavadis, and each of them opposes the other. Similarly, in the Western countries, there are also many philosophers with different views of creation, life, maintenance, and annihilation. This is undoubtedly a fact that there are countless philosophers throughout the world, each of them contradicting the others. Now one may ask why there are so many philosophers if the ultimate goal of philosophy is one. Undoubtedly the ultimate cause is one, the Supreme Brahman. As Arjuna told Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adideva Majam Vibhum. You are the Supreme Brahman, the ultimate, the supreme abode and purifier, the absolute truth and the eternal divine person. You are the primal God, transcendental and original, and you are the unborn and all-pervading beauty. Non-devotee speculators, however, do not accept an ultimate cause, sarva karma, because they are ignorant and bewildered concerning the soul and its activities. Even though some of them have a vague idea of the soul, many controversies arise, and the philosophical speculators can never reach a conclusion. All of these speculators are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tan aham dushita kruran samsareshu naradaman shrupam ajastram ashubham asura sveva yonishu asuram yonimapana mudha janmani janmani mam aprapyaiva kaunteya tato yant yadamam gatim. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life, attaining repeated birth and death in species of demoniac life. Such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Because of their envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, non-devotees are born into demoniac families, life after life. They are great offenders, and because of their offenses, the Supreme Lord keeps them always bewildered. Kurvanti chaisham mohur atma mohan The Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, purposely keeps them in darkness, Atma Moham. The great authority, Parashara, the father of Vyasadeva, explains the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus: Jnana Shakti Balaishvarya Virya Tejam Shesheshata Bhagavat Shabda Vachyani Vina Heyar Gunadivi. The demoniac speculators cannot understand the transcendental qualities, form, pastimes, strength, knowledge, and opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which are all free from material contamination. These speculators are envious of the existence of the Lord, Jagadadhur Anishvara. Their conclusion is that the entire cosmic manifestation has no controller but is just working naturally. Thus they are kept in constant darkness, birth after birth, and cannot understand the real cause of all causes. This is the reason why there are so many schools of philosophical speculation. Whose is this? You gotta be really strong to keep that. That's the heaviest machine I ever. Continuing at text number 109. In almost all cases, whatever learned Brahmanas speak becomes accepted. Nothing is impossible for one who takes shelter of my illusory energy and speaks under her influence. Do you like it or not? Okay, here's the purport. In this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:22-4, the Supreme Personality of Godhead explains that his illusory energy can perform the impossible. Such is the power of the illusory energy. In many cases, philosophical speculators have covered the real truth and have boldly set forth false theories. In ancient times, philosophers like Kapila, Gautama, Jaimini, Kanada, and similar Brahmanas propounded useless philosophical theories. And in modern days, so-called scientists are setting forth many false theories about the creation, backed up by seemingly logical arguments. This is all due to the influence of the Supreme Lord's illusory energy. The illusory energy, therefore, sometimes appears correct because it is emanating from the Supreme Correct, as a verisimilitude. To avoid the very bewildering illusory influence, one must accept the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as they are. Only then can one escape the influence of the illusory energy. Text 110. After hearing this from Gopinathacharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "First go to the place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is staying and invite him here with his associates. Ask him on my account. Take Jagannath Prasadam and first give it to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. After that, come back here and teach me well." Gopinathacharya was the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Therefore, their relationship was very sweet and intimate. Under the circumstances, Gopinathacharya taught him by sometimes blaspheming him, sometimes praising him, and sometimes laughing at him. This had been going on for some time. Srila Mukunda Datta felt very satisfied to hear the conclusive statements of Gopinath Acharya, but he became very unhappy and angry to hear the statements put forward by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. According to the instructions of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Gopinath Acharya went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and invited him on the Bhattacharya's behalf. The Bhattacharya's statements were discussed before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gopinath Acharya and Mukunda Datta disapproved of the Bhattacharya's statements because they caused mental pain. Hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Do not speak like that. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has shown great affection and mercy toward me. Out of parental affection for me, he wants to protect me and see that I follow the regulative principles of a sannyasi. What fault is there in this?" The next morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya together visited the temple of Lord Jagannath. Both of them were in a very pleasant mood. When they entered the temple, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya offered Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a seat, while he himself sat down on the floor, out of due respect for a sannyasi. He then began to instruct Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on Vedanta philosophy, and out of affection and devotion he spoke to the Lord as follows. It sounds like the way they have it here, they entered the temple. When they entered, like they're in the temple of Jagannath. That's what's indicated in the last couple of verses. He then began to instruct Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on Vedanta philosophy, and out of affection and devotion he spoke to the Lord as follows. Purport: the Vedanta, or Brahma Sutra, written by Srila Vyasadeva, is a book studied by all advanced spiritual students, especially by the sannyasis of all religious communities, sampradayas. The sannyasis must read the Vedanta Sutra to establish their final conclusions concerning Vedic knowledge. Here, of course, the Vedanta mentioned is the commentary of Shankaracharya, known as Shariraka-bhashya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya intended to convert Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was a Vaishnava sannyasi, into a Mayavadi sannyasi. He therefore made this arrangement to instruct him in the Vedanta Sutra according to the Shariraka commentary of Shankaracharya. All the sannyasis of the Shankara Sampradaya enjoy seriously studying the Vedanta Sutra with the Shariraka Bhashya commentary. It is said, Vedanta vakyeshu sada ramantaha. One should always enjoy the studies of the Vedanta Sutra. The Bhattacharya said, hearing Vedanta philosophy is a sannyasi's main business. Therefore, without hesitation, you should study Vedanta philosophy, hearing it without cessation from a superior person. Lord Chaitanya replied, you are very merciful to me, and therefore I think it is my duty to obey your order. Thus, for 7 days continually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu listened to the Vedanta philosophy expounded by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. However, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not say anything and did not indicate whether it was right or wrong. He simply sat there and listened to the Bhattacharya. On the 8th day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you have been listening to Vedanta philosophy from me continually for 7 days. You have simply been listening, fixed in your silence, since you do not say whether you think it right or wrong. I cannot know whether you're actually understanding Vedanta philosophy or not. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, I am a fool, and consequently I do not study the Vedanta Sutra. I'm just trying to hear it from you because you have ordered me. Only for the sake of executing the duties of the renounced order of sannyas do I listen. Unfortunately, I cannot in the least understand the meaning you are presenting. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented himself as if he were a sannyasi in name only, or in other words, a number one fool. Mayavadi sannyasis in India are very much accustomed to declaring themselves Jagat Gurus, teachers of the world, although they have no information of the outside world and are limited in their experience to a small town or village, or perhaps to the country of India. Nor do such sannyasis have sufficient education. Unfortunately, at the present moment, there are many foolish sannyasis, both in India and elsewhere, who simply read and study Vedic literature without understanding the purports. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was having his discussion with the Chandkazi, the Muslim magistrate of Navadvip, he recited a verse from the Vedic literature to the effect that the order of sannyas is prohibited in this age of Kali. Only those who are very serious and who follow the regular principles and study Vedanta literature should accept sannyas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approved of a sannyasi's reading the Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra, but he did not approve of the Shariraka commentary of Shankaracharya. Indeed, he said elsewhere, Mayavadi Bhashya Shunile Hoy Sarvanash. If one hears the Shariraka Bhashya of Shankaracharya, he is doomed. Thus, a sannyasi, a transcendentalist, must read the Vedanta Sutra regularly, but he should not read the Shariraka Bhashya. This is the conclusion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The real commentary on the Vedanta Sutra is Srimad Bhagavatam. Arto Yam Brahma Sutranam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the original commentary on the Vedanta Sutra written by the author himself, Srila Vyasadeva. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, I accept that you do not understand, yet even one who does not understand inquires about the subject matter. You are hearing again and again, yet you keep silent. I cannot understand what is actually within your mind. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then revealed his mind, saying, I can understand the meaning of each sutra very clearly, but your explanations have simply agitated my mind. Purport: the factual meaning of the aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra is as clear as sunshine. The Mayavadi philosophers simply try to cover the sunshine with the clouds of interpretations imagined by Shankaracharya and his followers. The meaning of the aphorisms in the Vedanta Sutra contain clear purports in themselves, but other purports you presented simply covered the meaning of the sutras like a cloud. You do not explain the direct meaning of the Brahma Sutras. Indeed, it appears that your business is to cover their real meaning. Purport: this is typical of all Mayavadis or atheists who interpret the meaning of Vedic literature in their own imaginative way. The real purpose of such foolish people is to impose the impersonalist conclusion on all Vedic literature. The Mayavadi atheists also interpret the Bhagavad Gita. In every verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In every verse, Vyasadeva says, Sri Bhagavana Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, or the Blessed Lord said. It is clearly stated that the Blessed Lord is the Supreme Person. But Mayavadi atheists still try to prove that the Absolute Truth is impersonal. In order to present their false imaginary meanings, they must adopt so much word jugglery and grammatical interpretation that they finally become ludicrous. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remarked that no one should hear the Mayavadi commentaries or purports to any Vedic literature. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the Vedanta Sutra is the summary of all the Upanishads. Therefore, whatever direct meaning is there in the Upanishads is also recorded in the Vedanta Sutra or Vyasa Sutra. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has explained the word Upanishad in his Anubhashya. Please refer to Adi Lila, 2nd chapter, 5th verse, and Adi Lila, 7th chapter, verses 106 and 108 for his explanations. For each sutra, the direct meaning must be accepted without interpretation. However, you simply abandon the direct meaning and proceed with your imaginative interpretation. Although there is other evidence, the evidence given in the Vedic version must be taken as foremost. Vedic versions understood directly are first-class evidence. Works that should be consulted are Srila Jiva Goswami's Tattva Sundarbha, 10 through 11. Srila Baladeva Vibhushan's commentary on that, and the following verses of the Brahma Sutra, Shastra Yoni Dvat, Tarka Pratishthanat, and Shrutis Te Shabda Mula Vat. As commented upon by Sri Ramanujacharya, Sri Madhvacharya, Sri Nimbarkacharya, and Srila Baladeva Vibhushan. In his book Sarva Samvadani, Srila Jiva Goswami has noted that although there are 10 kinds of evidence, direct perception, the Vedic version, historical reference, hypothesis, and so on, and although they are all generally accepted as evidence, the person presenting a hypothesis, reading the Vedic version, perceiving or interpreting by his experience is certain to be imperfect in 4 ways. That is, he is subject to committing mistakes, to becoming illusioned, to cheating, and to having imperfect senses. Although the evidence may be correct, the person himself is in danger of being misled due to his material defects. Apart from the direct presentation, there is a chance that an interpretation may not be perfect. Therefore, the conclusion is that only a direct presentation can be considered evidence. An interpretation cannot be accepted as evidence, but may be considered proof of evidence. In the Bhagavad Gita, at the very beginning, it is stated, Dhritarashtra vacha, dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyusava, mamaka pandavaschaiva kim akurvata sanjaya. The statements of Bhagavad Gita are themselves proof that there is a place of religious pilgrimage named Kurukshetra, where the Pandavas and Kurus met to fight. After meeting there, what did they do? This was Dhritarashtra's inquiry to Sanjaya. Although these statements are very clear, atheists try to interpret different meanings of the words Dharma, Kshetra, and Kurukshetra. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami has warned us not to depend on any kind of interpretation. It is better to take the verses as they are without interpretation. 136. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, conch shells and cow dung are nothing but the bones and stool of some living entities. But according to the Vedic version, they are both considered very pure. Purport. According to Vedic principles, bones and dung are generally considered very impure. If one touches a bone or stool, he must take a bath immediately. That is the Vedic injunction. Yet the Vedas also enjoin that a conch shell, although the bone of an animal, and cow dung, although the stool of an animal, are very much sanctified. Even though such statements appear contradictory on the basis of the Vedic version, we still accept the fact that conch shells and cow dung are pure and sanctified. The Vedic statements are self-evident, svataḥ-pramāṇa, self-evident. Svataḥ-pramāṇa Veda Satya Jay Kai, Lakshana Karile svataḥ-pramāṇya Hanahai. The Vedic statements are self-evident. Whatever is stated there must be accepted. If we interpret according to our own imagination, the authority of the Vedas is immediately lost. Purport. Out of four main types of evidence, direct perception, hypothesis, historical reference, and the Vedas, Vedic evidence is accepted as the foremost. If we want to interpret the Vedic version, we must imagine an interpretation according to what we want to do. First of all, we set forth such an interpretation as a suggestion or hypothesis. As such, it is not actually true, and the self-evident proof is lost. Srila Madhvacharya, commenting on the aphorism Drishyate 2, quotes the Bhavishya Purana as follows. The Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, Mahabharata, Pancharatra, and original Ramayana are all considered Vedic literature. The Puranas, such as the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Naradiya Purana, Vishnu Purana, and Bhagavat Purana, are especially meant for Vaishnavas and are also Vedic literature. As such, whatever is stated within the Puranas, Mahabharata, and Ramayana is self-evident. There is no need for interpretation. The Bhagavad Gita is also within the Mahabharata. Therefore, all the statements of the Bhagavad Gita are self-evident. There is no need for interpretation. And if we do interpret, the entire authority of the Vedic literature is lost. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the Brahma Sutra compiled by Srila Vyasadeva is as radiant as the sun. One who tries to interpret its meaning simply covers the sunshine with a cloud. Sudhir, is it necessary to contact the custodian of the temple to let them know that the backup generator is not working?
Yes.
I got it. All the Vedas and literature that strictly follow the Vedic principles explain that the Supreme Brahman is the absolute truth, the greatest of all, and a feature of the Supreme Lord. Purport, the greatest of everything is Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Vedaishta sarver ahameva Veda, but all the Vedas I am to be known. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1-11, it is said that the absolute truth is understood in three phases. namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabdite. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the last word in understanding the absolute truth, Brahman. Text 140. Actually, the Supreme Absolute Truth is a person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full with all opulences. You are trying to explain him as impersonal and formless. Purport. Brahman means Brihatva, the greatest of all. The greatest of all is Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He possesses all potencies and opulences in full. Therefore, the Absolute Truth, the greatest of all, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whether one says Brahman or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the fact is the same, for they are identical. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna accepted Krishna as Param Brahma Param Dhamma. Although the living entities or material nature are sometimes described as Brahman, Parabrahman, the Supreme, the greatest of all Brahmans, is still Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is full with all opulences, and as such, he possesses all riches, all strength, all reputation, all knowledge, all beauty, and all renunciation. He is eternally a person, and eternally supreme. If one tries to explain the Supreme impersonally, one distorts the real meaning of Brahman. Text 141. Wherever there is an impersonal description in the Vedas mean to establish that everything belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and free of mundane characteristics. Purport. There are many impersonal statements about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in the Svataḥ-pramāṇa Upanishad 3.19. Apani pado javano brihita pashyat yachakshu sasrinot jakarna saveti vedyam nacha tasyasti veta tam ayur agnyam tam ayur argyam purusham vahantam. Although the Supreme Lord is described as having no hands and legs, he nonetheless accepts all sacrificial offerings. He has no eyes, yet he sees everything. He has no ears, yet he hears everything. When it is stated that the Supreme Lord has no hands and legs, one should not think that he is impersonal. Rather, he has no mundane hands or legs like ours. He has no eyes, yet he sees. This means that he does not have mundane limited eyes like ours. Rather, he has such eyes that he can see past, present, and future, everywhere, in every corner of the universe, and in every corner of the heart of every living entity. Thus, the impersonal descriptions in the Vedas intend to deny mundane characteristics in the Supreme Lord. They do not intend to establish the Supreme Lord as impersonal. Text 142. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, whatever Vedic mantras describe the Absolute Truth impersonally only prove in the end that the Absolute Truth is a person. The Supreme Lord is understood in two features, impersonal and personal. If one considers the Supreme Personality of Godhead in both features, he can actually understand the Absolute Truth. He knows that the personal understanding is stronger because we see that everything is full of variety. No one can see anything that is not full of variety. Purport. This is a quotation from Sri Chaitanya Chandrodayanathika by Kavi Karnapur. 143. Everything in the cosmic manifestation emanates from the Absolute Truth, remains in the Absolute Truth, and after annihilation enters the Absolute Truth. In the Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1 it is said, Yato va imani bhutani jayante. The entire material cosmic manifestation is born of the Supreme Brahman. Also, the Brahma Sutra begins with the verse, Janma jasa yataha. The Absolute Truth is that from whom everything emanates. That Absolute Truth is Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. Therefore, Krishna is the original absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 9.4, Mayata tamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina. By me and my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. And as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 537, Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhutaha. Although the Lord always stays in his abode, Goloka Vrindavan, he is still all-pervading. His all-pervasive feature is understood to be impersonal, because one does not find the form of the Lord in that all-pervasiveness. Actually, everything is resting on the rays of his bodily effulgence. The Brahma Samhita 540 also states, Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadanda koti koti shrashesha vasudadi vibhuti vinam tad brahma nishkalam anantam ashesha bhutam govindamadi purusham tanaham bhajani. Due to the rays of the Lord's bodily effulgence, millions of universes are created, just as planets are created from the sun. Just as planets are created from the sun. The personal features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are categorized in three cases, namely ablative, instrumental, and locative. Purport: Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur states in his Amrita Prabhaha Bhashya, where? That according to the injunction of the Upanishads, the Supreme Absolute Truth is he from whom everything emanates. It is understood that the whole cosmic manifestation emanated from Brahman, the Supreme Absolute Truth. The creation subsists by the energy of the Supreme Brahman, and after annihilation merges into the Supreme Brahman. From this we can understand that the Absolute Truth can be categorized in three cases: ablative, instrumental, and locative. According to these three cases, the Absolute Truth is positively personified. It is in this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati quotes the Aitareya Upanishad. Aitareya Upanishad, Atmava idam eka evagra asinadya kinchana mishat sa ikshata lokanam strikja iti. Similarly, in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 4.9, it is stated, Chandamsi yajna kratavo vratani utani abhyam yachaveda vatanti yasman mahi srijati vishwametat tasmin chanyo mayaya sanirudaha. And in the Taitara Upanishad 3.1, Yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani tiranti yat pravant yavisam vishanti tad vijnanasva tad brahma. This was the answer given by Father Varuna when questioned by his son Varuni Brigu about the Absolute Truth. In this mantra, the word yata, the Absolute Truth from which the cosmic manifestations emanated, is in the ablative case. That Brahman by which this universal creation is maintained is in the instrumental case, jnana. And that Brahman into which the whole cosmic manifestation merges is in the locative case, yat or yasmin. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.20, Idam hi vishvam bhagavan viveshvaro yato jagatstani nirodha sambhava. The entire universal creation is contained in the gigantic form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything emanates from him. Everything rests in his energy. And after annihilation, everything merges into his person. We'll just take a short break for some reflection or question. Yes, Prabhu. One, two.
It's interesting that this observation by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that the Vedanta Sutra itself is clear, but Shankaracharya has clouded it with his imagination. This is accepted even by academic scholars, not in the same manner though. Ravindra Swarup Prabhu was explaining that when he was in the university, there were professors who said that if you read the Vedanta Sutra literally, you can't escape the conclusion that it's a personal text. But they don't take that reading. They normally take the reading of Shankaracharya because that is considered, he is considered as not an authority, whatever. They have some comments by Shankaracharya. So even academic professors, they say that if you read it directly, then you can't avoid the conclusion that it's personal, the Vedanta Sutra.
That's really interesting. But since there's some other opinion that's there documented, you sort of go along with it. They have very little interest in coming to a conclusion anyway, right? I mean, nobody has any interest in proving that Krishna's God. Yes?
I had one question in the commentary for text 91 or 99 in chapter 6. It mentioned the 25 Lila avatars mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. And in that list of 25, Buddha is listed. But then the next paragraph it says, in this age of Kali, there are no Lila avatars. But as far as I understand, Buddha is mentioned in the Bhagavatam as appearing in the age of Kali.
I don't know, look in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, because all the technical loose ends are tied up in there. It's remarkable actually, and that's why he made that book, is to answer all these little nitpicky questions. And if we have one, we can look it up, grab it later and just research it. Yes, Prabhu?
I always enjoy when Prabhupada translates the same verse in two different places with slightly different word meanings. I noticed that in the Krishna Varnam verse, which is at 103 in the CC, where Astra was his weapon, was translated as the weapon of chanting Hare Krishna. And I looked at the Bhagavatam purport, and in there he said Jiva Goswami said Astra is his beauty, is his weapon. So I just like when there's different shades of meaning through the different translations. That was one I noticed here.
Yeah, very interesting. Yes, Prabhu?
Yeah, Encyclopedia Britannica, if we look at the Vedanta, then it's mentioned that the scholarly consensus is that the conclusion is Bheda Bheda. And those who are in the extremes are actually making interpretations which they mentioned Shankara. In some places he really goes out of the direct meaning just to fit his purpose of monistic conclusion. So that's obvious. And they say also he's contradicting himself in many places. And one thing is that he, in many of the sutras in Sharika Bhasha, mentions that Narayana is Para-Brahman. So they say, well, he seems to be a Vaishnava because he states that he equals, and even Prabhupada quotes him in Bhagavad Gita's introduction, he says Narayana Paravatat. He's not mundane, like later on they say Narayana. So interesting to know the academics following that point. But the other thing I wanted to comment was on the exchange between Bhattacharya and Gopinathacharya. How, Gopinathacharya was quite aggressive, calling him dry philosopher like that. But Bhattacharya was at the end, okay, just call him and let's give him Mahaprasad. It's just the culture is so. Of course, Prabhupada explains because they were relatives. he could afford to use all kinds of strategies like Ninda and to blaspheme him, to praise him, to ridicule him, because the internet. But it's just their argument was so gentle and nice, even they insisted on their point. So it's a good illustration of the culture in debates.
And it was on the internet. Anyways, I'm gonna blow it up. Okay, any from the outside? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Okay, hold on, there's a whole group, how about going on there? You want to sort anything out? Is there a technical problem? Huh? All good? The mystery of what's in there. It's killing me. Okay. Go ahead. Akshay, go ahead.
So I'm part of this group on LinkedIn, which is like deep transformational coaching group. So we are a group of coaches, and the person who started is she reads the Gita, and she is very knowledgeable. So every time she posts, I rebut as well. She's from the Arsha Vidya, group, Saraswati group, mostly in South India. And so I always add a little bit about the personalism, and I feel that there is a cancel culture. When people cancel you, saying that okay, this person is just going to talk about God and not get the juice out of the Gita for running a coaching practice better.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm trying to direct them to not in an arrogant way, but just putting my point forward, which many are appreciating, but many are also cancelling. So is it okay to continue or just not do it?
I mean, if you got a job there, you might want to think about it. But it is, it's an art to figure out how far you can go in certain forms, and it's definitely an important observation about where people don't want to go. It's that we'll accept any kind of academic investigation as long as nobody makes an absolute claim that there is a God. Then from academia or in the corporate culture, then you're canceled, unless you're in some heavily Christian place and the corporation's run by somebody who wants to propagate that. But that's the general thing. But the question of how much to add, a lot of it has to do with timing. If you're relentless and you keep lobbing stuff in there and you keep getting canceled, after a while people might avoid you. But if you look for the places where, pick your battles, where it can really count and where there was an opening for you, that's what I would say. But I have to look at it to give a more definitive. But it's always a conundrum, like how far to go, where's that line? Because even in writing things, you can say anything about self-realization as long as you don't say that there is a God and he's a person. Even you can say there's a God as long as he remains impersonal, everybody's cool with it. But then everyone's allergic to this idea of sectarianism. And partly it's because of the history of the world and the way that people perceive the differences of religious processes and how everyone fights over it. But the other part is a naturally inborn sense of rejection of the idea of somebody who's superior to me and superior to everybody. It's like Prabhupada once said, people go into a room and there's obviously a difference between the stature of the people in the room. And then somebody starts the meeting and they say, okay, we're all in the room together, so we'll just consider we're all equal. And this is the tendency, people want to neutralize God also, and just say, nobody should say anybody's better than anybody else, and Nobody's really the supreme controller. That's the aversion that people have to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There was one more outside, and then we're coming in. Yes.
I have a question on verses 135 and 137. In the Prabhupada's portions us and gives a warning of interpretation of the Shastras, and Mangalarti we have the 10 offenses, and it says to not give mundane interpretation of the holy names of the Lord, which kind of gives the message that you can give transcendental interpretations.
The question was, can we give transcendental interpretations? Did you ask a question, or is it just
Just a clarification.
Okay, could you state it again in one sentence? I'm going to listen really carefully. Say it one
In
more time.
135 and 137, Prabhupada gives the portion of interpreting the Shastras, and the 10 offenses says we shouldn't give mundane interpretation of the holy names of the Lord, which indicates that we can give spiritual interpretation.
He says you can't give spiritual interpretation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Is that
Yeah, we'll
correct?
probably explain. A devotee asked Prabhupada what's the difference between mental speculation and spiritual, philosophical speculation. He said, if the conclusion is Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it's philosophical speculation. If it is that there is no God, or Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it's mental speculation. So, one of the main points here in these three verses is svataḥ-pramāṇa. In any philosophical system, there has to be axiomatic truth. Otherwise, you have no place to stand. If you start to solve a mathematical problem, you have to solve for x. Or whatever, you have to have a basis to start from. Otherwise, you get infinite regress and infinite deconstruction of everything you're talking about, and you have nowhere to go except for backwards, meaning that everything is up for interpretation. There has to be a place that's svataḥ. It's automatically revealed. Just like the sun. You don't have to speculate where the sun came out. It's obvious. And so the Shastra reveals itself, and it's considered a Purusheya. It's the ultimate word in everything, the Vedic word. So that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was pointing out, that Shankarites and others, they work around the direct meanings that are self-evident to try to prove something else, and that's mental speculation, and it's not helpful. I mean, transcendental or spiritual speculation is really, what does it mean? It means to think about ways to prove that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You might look at a situation and interpret it, bring it as a metaphor, and say, oh, just see how this proves. Here's a bridge, and we need a bridge to get to the spiritual world. So there's a metaphor, and you look at the world and you think about it in various ways, philosophically, how it relates to proving that there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's spiritual. If you speculate and it brings you to an erroneous conclusion that there is no soul and there is no God, then that's mental speculation. So yes, there is spiritual speculation. Speculate. Hold on. Tell you what I'm going to do for you. And throw in for free. What is the etymology of the word speculate? Has a fascinating history that traces back to Latin and is rooted in the idea of looking or observing. Latin origins, from speculare, meaning to watch, observe, spy out. This comes from specula, watchtower, which is derived from specere, to look at, behold. Related Latin words, speculum, mirror, something you look into, spectare, to watch. So originally, to speculate meant to watch carefully, to examine. It arrived in English in the late 16th century, around the 1590s. The early meaning was to observe, contemplate, reflect upon. 17th century, by that time it also became meant to theorize or make conjectures without firm evidence. That's where it changed. There's a financial sense to it too, which we won't go into. But if you just look at the raw meaning of it, it just means to be observant. So if you're spiritually observant, that's a good thing. And the pejorative sense of mental speculation means that you're just depending on your own mind for a conclusion. You don't go back to the Shastra that's self-evident. Okay? I need a verbal yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Prabhu?
In the Christian tradition, the Christian scholars have been debating this concept of rational theology and revelational theology. So the rational theologians, they hold that you can use your rationality, rational thought, and come up with conclusions as long as they don't contradict the Bible. So, but the revelational theologians, they hold you can use your logic and reasoning, but you cannot come up with any new conclusions, even if it doesn't contradict. You can use your logic and reason only to support the already given conclusions. And that we, in our Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we follow that system where the conclusions are already given with acharyas. We can use our logic to support the conclusion. But if we use logic to come up with a conclusion, even if it doesn't contradict, still that is not considered as unless one is self-realized soul. But otherwise, that's not considered as bona fide.
Yeah, it's helpful to understand in different realms they face the same logical issues that have to be resolved. And you have to have a system, and you work by the system in order to make progress. Otherwise, infinite regress and confusion. Epistemology. How do you prove what's real? How do you know what you're saying is accurate and reality?
I was just going to add a couple references that came to mind in relation to the argument. We had the discussion of arguments previously, and this is one quotation from Adi 17:308. Anything transcendental to material nature is called inconceivable, whereas arguments are all mundane. Since mundane arguments cannot touch transcendental subject matters, one should not try to understand transcendental subjects through mundane arguments. And that's from the Mahabharata, Bhishma Parva, 522. And then there's another quote that also came to mind that was quoted in the Adi-Lila, chapter 5, that matters inconceivable to a common man should not be a subject for argument in this kind of Purana.
Thank you. Good citations. Anybody else in the... Yes, that looks like Don Shuli. If I'm not incorrect.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I want to bring into citation the verse from Canto 7, chapter 9, verse 20, spoken by Prahlad Maharaj. Yasmin yato ihar yena cha yasya. In connecting with how yena and yata, the causative, ablative aspects of the Lord. I see and I'm thinking that the Lord, the tattva of the Lord, that He is everything that's there, and then the devotee is seeing that, not just from the theoretical perspective, but he, like Prahlad Maharaj actually saw Narasimha in the pillar, so he knew he's there, even before he actually emerged from the pillar. Just considering these points, that although the theoreticians may think about different aspects of the Lord. They don't experience it, but the devotee experiences the Lord, and therefore his statement is affirmative.
Thank you for quoting that verse, because it did match up with the various forms of speech. Yasminyato yahi yenacha yasma yasma yata yadutara tapara parova bhava karoti vikaroti prataksabhava sanchodhitas tadakivam bhavatasvarupam. He's saying you're everything in all phases of time, and any way the form of language you want to explain it, all comes back to Krishna. Whatever you have in your life. Can I have the harmonium? Now we have a lightning round of one realization you're taking away from the day. It's not a Bhagavatam class, it's just one sentence. We don't have time for everybody, so we'll take the first 5 volunteers. Yes, 1, 2. Got 2 in here. Go ahead, one sentence.
There's many theories and there's many philosophies, and it has some truth in it because it comes from Krishna, which is the truth.
Ooh, nice one. 2.
Hare Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita is the perfect meal or a complete beverage. Everything is in it. It's nourishing, satisfying, and highly addictive.
That's nice. 2 nice ones. Okay, let's see how the outside people's party can do. Okay, there's number 3 from the outside people's party.
Krishna is easy to please.
Krishna's what?
Easy to please.
Krishna's easy to please, whereas family members not so much. Okay, let's see any more. That's 3. We have 3. We need 2 more. Yes.
Krishna is Mati.
Yeah, and what does that mean to you? How are you taking that away? How's that?
So if my children or anyone younger than me asks me for blessings, say Krishna Mati Rasta. May attention beyond Krishna.
Sweet, sweet. Okay, here we go, number 5. Prabhupada.
Any knowledge of Krishna is sympathetic with Krishna's mercy.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And much, much more, right? We could go on all day because we took in so much. And it's all in there. We'll come out at all the right times. Let's end with just a little kirtan. Okay? Yes. And we'll get just a little warm up for the Kartik season. Do we have our certified